Yesterday, Mark Carney announced that Canada will recognize a Palestinian state in September. I think the only thing worse than doing this would have been to do it on October 7th, on the anniversary of the Hamas terror attacks that left 1,200 dead and, roughly 250 people kidnapped and several Canadians dead. But here's Mark Carney rewarding terrorism.
For the reasons I cited earlier, Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. I spoke today with President Abbas at length to reaffirm his commitment. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in their horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine. Canada will always steadfastly support Israel's existence as an independent state in the Middle East, living in peace and security. Any path to lasting peace for Israel also requires a viable and stable Palestinian state, and one that recognizes Israel's inalienable right to security and peace.
This is just a despicable moment in Canadian history. How far we've strayed from Stephen Harper, the first Canadian Prime Minister to speak at the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, to this. Rewarding terror. This would be like Canada officially recognizing Al-Qaeda as the legitimate government of Afghanistan after 9/11. Like it's just the craziest thing. This is a continuation, though, of this weird Laurentian anti-American nonsense. There's a reason that Canadians can travel to Cuba and Americans can't. And that's because we did not stand with our American allies in their embargo against Cuba. So every year, Canadian tourists go and prop up a communist regime that exploits its people and suppresses them, while the Americans refuse to participate in enabling any of that. It's just, this is a disgrace. And the Israeli government is not happy with us at all.
Well, and good luck, Mark Carney, now trying to get a trade deal with Donald Trump.
Trump has said this is not good for a trade deal with us. I saw a Truth Social post about this. And how do you think the Abraham Accords were done? How do you think all those Gulf states were able to make peace with Israel? And it came from a message from Donald Trump to the Gulf states. He said, the path to Washington goes through Jerusalem. So figure it out with Israel. And then guess what? You've got our ear. And that was how peace broke out in the region. And then now we've got this, a major terror attack, and Canada is rewarding the kidnapping and murder of civilians, many of them peace activists, with a two-state solution. There was a two-state solution, Jordan and Israel. But I mean, here we are. I can't even believe this. And this is Israel and Canada. So that's the Israeli embassy in Canada issued a condemnation of this. Said Israel rejects Canada's endorsement of Palestinian statehood. Let us be clear, Israel will not bow to the distorted campaign of international pressure against it. We will not sacrifice our very existence by permitting the imposition of a jihadist state on our ancestral homeland that seeks our annihilation, said the ambassador. Recognizing a Palestinian state in the absence of unaccountable government, functioning institutions, and benevolent leadership rewards and legitimizes the monstrous barbarity of Hamas on October 7th, 2023. It punishes Israeli and Palestinian victims of Hamas, vindicates Hamas Western sympathizers, fueling anti-Semitism, and hardens Hamas's position at the negotiation table at the most critical time. As Mark Carney stated, a Palestinian state must live side by side in security with Israel and recognize the right of Israel to exist. President Abbas's latest vision for the future sharply contrasts with the Palestinian Authority's longstanding record. Thus, it is hard to see his newfound commitments as more than thinly veiled strategy to maintain the status quo with the sympathy and support of the international community. Canada and its allies should not be under any illusion otherwise. Yeah, and let's look at the numbers. So they want Abbas to step down and then Hamas to not run in the next election. 75% of people in Gaza support Hamas. So whether the next political terrorist entity that takes charge of that place is called Hamas, the ideology will still be exactly the same. And if we recognize Iran as the world's largest state sponsor of terror, Canada, if it had a brain in its head, it wouldn't be doing this. But by that theory, would have to immediately recognize whatever new Palestinian state as another state sponsor of terror. This is the most bizarre, ridiculous, disgusting thing this government could possibly have done. Hamas killed Canadians that day too. Imagine what their families feel like right now.
The thing for me that I keep coming back to is, where does Mark Carney get off just kind of unilaterally making this assertion and decision, though? He's not done this with the approval of our democracy, of Parliament. And so when the House isn't sitting and you have your supposedly elected prime minister up there making decisions on his own, that to me screams more like a dictator than actually a democratically elected and functioning leader. I just want to throw back to the article from Blacklocks here that came out this morning, where they note that MPs voted against this proposal just last year. So it was originally put forward by the NDP. They put forward a motion in the House, of course, to officially recognize the state of Palestine, and it was voted down. 204 to 118 rejected that motion. And Liberal MP Anthony Housefather said this would bring pain to one of two communities in Canada, because one strongly wants it to pass and one strongly wants it to fail. And then he goes on to say that this is rewarding terrorism. Foreign policy written this way is not a good thing, when we would be saying we are suddenly going to recognize the state of Palestine unilaterally, which I might add is what Carney is just doing now on his own. When for 50 years under successive Liberal and Conservative governments, we have said the parties need to negotiate. So this was just May of last year. What happened? Yeah. Well, now we have Mark Carney acting like a dictator.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's being lit up, like lit up. Vivian Bursovici, I think is how I say her name. She was the ambassador to Israel under Harper. I think she called this idiotic. Rick Perkins, former MP, one of my favorites on the Green Slush Fund file. Great shame that he wasn't reelected. Is just absolutely scorching the Liberals on this. Former MP Michelle Ferrari, she says, sorry, I'm just bringing it up. Not only did Mark Carney give terrorists what they want, he's giving Donald Trump every reason to rationalize annexing us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we are legitimizing terror. What do you think this says to the Jewish communities in Montreal, like in Outremont, in Toronto, that are terrorized by these Hamas sympathizers every week? That you can just terrorize a community of innocent Jews with your rampant anti-Semitism, and Mark Carney will side with the aggressor? There's no rule of law. Yeah, Trump says Canada backing statehood for Palestine makes it very hard to negotiate a U.S. trade deal.
There you go.
You know what? Not in the new country. We're out of here. We're out of here.
Alberta's looking better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a nightmare.
Yes.
I'll let you pick the next thing that we can talk about. But like I said, our national nightmare of embarrassment, really, I mean, this is a level of despicability that I don't even think Trudeau reached when it comes to the anti-Semitism issue at all.
Yeah. And we'll see once the House comes back in September if this actually ends up coming to fruition, because I suspect that Carney is going to have to backpedal pretty huge on this one.
Well, he made the big announcement.
But the internet doesn't, the internet is forever, Mark Carney. We
Right.
have the clips. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.